evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, the largest single-screen drive-in in the United States. We're certainly glad you could be with us this evening, and don't forget the concession stand is open with all kinds of great things to eat and drink.
.3 Mahoning Drive-In Radio, your old friend Virgil back for another exciting episode of the podcast. As you guys know, the only podcast dedicated to the love and revival of our beloved drive-in culture. Joined as always by my co-host and general manager extraordinaire, Mark. Say hello, my friend.
Hello.
Joined as well, King Jeff in the house, the three-headed beast. Not Jeff, but once we're all together. Jeff, say hello, my friend.
Yowzer.
Today we have a very special episode continuing our Meet the Crew series, which we haven't done in quite some time, but too many things that happen at the Mahoning Drive-In Theater happen at the right time that it's hard not to say that destiny is at play. Certainly we are big believers in destiny, but when Krista came into our lives, we instantly fell in love with her. Her knowledge of film, her enthusiasm for all that the Mahoning does, her willingness to encourage our weird, wacky ideas. And as some of you guys know, one of the crew fell deeply in love, a little more than the rest of us. But today we are jumping into the origin story of Krista, projectionist at the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. Hello, Krista.
Hello, friends.
So excited to have you. Little timestamp, we're in the off season, so we are missing the entire crew so much. It's always so hard in the off season when we don't get to see each other. So moments like this when we can connect is just it's an extra thrill for us, let alone the audience.
I'm so excited to talk with all of you because I miss all of you so much.
Oh, we do too. We do too. Yeah.
The endless memories from this last season. And I guess maybe that's a good place to start. We always like to go into the origin story of how you first discovered the Mahoning. You started coming before last year. It was just last year was when you became more present, I guess.
Yes. My first trip out there was in 2018 for Weekend of Terror. I'd always wanted to go to a drive-in that was somewhat local, but I kind of lived in the middle of this void where it was Warwick, New York, or the deep south of New Jersey, or out in Pennsylvania. So nothing was really that nearby. But I kept seeing ads, I believe, online for the Mahoning. And the events they'd post just always caught my eye. And I really didn't think it was anywhere remotely close to where I lived.
Which I guess you were right.
I mean... I'm 90 minutes from there, so it's not that bad. I mean, I'm pretty close compared to a lot of people that go there.
Fact. Yeah.
But I saw an ad for Weekend of Terror, and I saw it was all 35 millimeter, which I don't think I'd grasped before that. And I said, oh my gosh, they're showing Toolbox Murders, and I think it was The Town That Dreaded Sundown.
Come on.
I have nothing going on. I'm very single. I don't have plans. I'm going to go do this drive and go see what this is about.
Yeah.
And I did. And I fell in love with the place. I mentioned last time the GPS took me to the neighbor's house, but I eventually sorted that out and had my first drive-in experience at the Mahoning. And I was woefully unprepared, but it didn't even matter. It was such a good time. I didn't have a radio. I didn't bring a chair.
It's always
I
that
didn't bring
learning
anything
curve.
to stay warm with.
Yeah. Just like everybody else seems prepared around me. You're sitting out there freezing your butt off.
Yeah, but me being Miss Punctuality, I definitely must have shown up early because my first experience there was in the front row. And I just had to crack open the windows. I didn't trust my car to run the car radio, so I just cracked open the windows and could hear the sound just fine from all the surrounding radios that were being played up on the front lawn. I had a blast, and I fell in love. It felt like a cathedral to me.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Nice. That's nice.
And I kept coming back at least a few times a year, and then the pandemic happened, and the drive-in became the only place I was really going to for 2020 and even a lot of 2021 because I was very conscious of being safe and all of that. So I was so grateful to have a place I could go and enjoy something I enjoy so much and feel like I was among people, even though I never really talked to anybody at that point.
That was such a connecting time for so many people.
Yeah.
A lot of people cite that with, the time that they really fell in love with what the Mahoning
Oh,
does,
yeah.
Mahoning represents. It was the ultimate communal experience when we had none.
I think a lot of people share your experience there, myself included, where you're maybe not this most social person out there, and you go to the drive-in and you can be as social or not as you want, which is what I always say. You can stay in your car or with your car and only, go in and out of the building on a necessity basis. And then you can sort of start seeing the same people, and maybe you start talking to other people, they start talking to you, and then slowly you wind up getting embraced and drawn into the social circles there. And you could be the biggest social anxiety person out there and still have a great time. You don't have to talk to anybody, but
it's true.
It's very much a richer experience when you start to. And it's a wonderful place where, unlike most theaters, if you just start talking to a stranger, they'll back away slowly. And at the Mahoning, everybody is like, we all like the same thing. So everybody is usually willing to just talk to a stranger and get into those deep dive conversations about Fabio Testi and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And don't forget Wings Hauser.
The amount of Wings Hausers I get every year on the lot, I love it. Well, that's a good point. Yeah, the camaraderie on the lot, things like that. Did you find you had these connections right away with the crew, the team, everybody like that?
Well, I think I said in the last podcast, I hadn't really, I would end up speaking with people that I was parked near, but I didn't speak to anyone that worked there until I talked to Carl when he was DJing one night, because he played something that I thought was incredible to hear on any radio. So I went in and I just had to say something, which is very uncharacteristic of me if I don't feel, I know anybody.
Totally.
That's how good the song was, and that's how good a DJ Carl is. So I went in and said something, and ever since that time, Carl would always say hello if he saw me a lot, as Carl does. He's very friendly and made me feel like, I didn't know Carl at all then, but I felt like I had a friend there to some extent. And and it just kind of built a little. Meeting Rob was the thing that really pivoted everything, because he began introducing me to everyone there, and everyone just made me feel so at home and so welcome. And it was like instant friends.
Did you step into the booth to talk to Carl?
Or did you see him on the lot? So. Because I wouldn't have known who he was. So that was probably early 2022, I would guess.
Yeah.
From the first time stepping into that booth to where you're at now. Yeah. The love of 35 millimeter, it's obviously it's our mission here at the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. It's what we preach. That love for you, did that seep into your soul? Was that something that existed before you got to the Mahoning? Are you the type of person that seeks out format?
I am. I'm a very tangible person. And the advent of digital media, while I saw all the benefits and the positives of it and the convenience of having, a collection at home and whatnot, but I was definitely one of those people that said, no, don't let film die. I had worked with 16 millimeter film in my undergraduate studies and my graduate studies, actually. And 16 millimeter film production courses where, we shot using old Bolex cameras and such, and we're editing on those flatbed Steenbeck editors. So every frame of the film you made, you were just connected to and responsible for, and taping every sequence together. And it gave me a very different appreciation for film structure and just the amount of detail, minutia, and tedium that goes into making a film. I just loved it. I loved working with my hands with it. And the work I did in grad school was something called cameraless filmmaking, or handmade filmmaking, which is essentially taking either old scraps of films that are no longer, they're pieces of other films that the rest was lost, or just scrap footage, or even just unexposed film or later and manipulating it. So either coloring it, dyeing it, scratching it.
Wow.
Painting, drawing, all sorts of things. We did animation. Oh gosh, we had we had designed templates to print on clear plastic paper, like titles frame by frame, to sort of animate titles that you'd then tape on the film.
Wow.
And it actually stayed. It worked pretty well. It was a pretty cool effect. All sorts of methods. The whole point of that process was exploration, and I loved it. And that's when I got set up at home with a 16 millimeter projector. I have an Elmo 16CL, and I love it dearly. I'm never giving that machine up. And
I love that.
you know, back then I was a poor graduate student, so the thing I collected was really old NASA newsreels. I'd find them at flea markets or on eBay.
Yeah.
And then just junk film that I would play around with. I never destroyed the NASA films, I dare not, but other stuff I would play around with at home. And then I wasn't connected to it for a very long time. Graduate school ended and my own playfulness with it ended because I had to go back to a real job and all that. So
yeah,
this brought me back to something I could do with my hands.
Yeah.
And appreciate the tangibility of film and what all film formats are. It's these magic light shows that occur on a large screen for people to come together and watch, but it's all optical illusion with the eye, you know? And I love it. So I'm definitely a format seeker. And, you know, a drive-in is a drive-in, but the Mahoning was very special to me because of its advocacy for showing 35 millimeter film.
Yeah. It's our calling card. It really
Thank you. Yes.
Makes us stand apart, and you can really tell when somebody appreciates that and connects with that. And that was clear from day one. Now, how you went from being the fan at the Mahoning that loves what we do to now working as the magician in the projection booth as one of our projectionists. I know it's not a short story, but how did this connection happen with Rob and bringing you into the booth? Because, again, like I said in the intro, such a perfect destined timing and right place. It just felt so perfectly natural. But I'll let you take it away as far as how that connection happened.
You have 7 minutes.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I was definitely somewhat of I would lurk around the booth a lot in all my trips to the Mahoning, just trying to peek in at the machines and what people were doing in the booth all the years I was there. But I never dared go in and have a conversation or anything. I would try to take photos through the door and all that. But I felt like I'm not going to interrupt what they're doing because it's very important in here and they're busy. But of course, the Mahoning is very welcoming of people coming in and learning about the projection booth. So that was all me. But I met Rob at VHS Fest in 2022, and he said, well, this is a perfect day for me to show you the booth because we're not running film till later. I think the movie Mausoleum was running late that night, but he had all that time beforehand. So he was able to give me a very thorough booth tour. And we just, you know, Rob is a marathon and skilled conversationalist. So we just had a long conversation while we were looking at everything in there. And we connected over little things in that conversation we had. And
the sparks started to fly. All of a sudden the bulb turned on. It's like, what's going on?
I mean, I wasn't aware of it, and I don't think he was either, because we spent probably VHS Fest was early July. It took us about 2 months to realize what we were doing. And but every time I would go there, I think the next time I was there, he saw me and waved and said hello. So I walked over and we had another really long conversation before he had to go and get back to work. And that just became part of my trip there. I would show up, and eventually Rob and I would find each other and we would talk for a long while, and eventually watched the movie Cruising with me. We made a plan to do that.
The ultimate meet cute.
That was the first movie we watched together.
Yes.
And I think by then we kind of knew what something was
That's
going on.
cute.
We were
But-
wearing matching bandanas.
Yeah.
We knew it was meant to be.
That's cute. Yeah, that's great.
I was the only one with the bandanas, but yeah, cruising of all things. But I love that
Wow.
movie. Rob had never seen it before. So yeah, he part of that process, he started introducing me to what it is he does in there.
Yeah.
And I kept feeling like, gosh, you're working, I don't want to take away from that or whatever. But Jeff was always welcoming of me being in there, and
Sure.
everyone was very welcoming of me observing and asking questions. And I couldn't believe what goes on in putting on a show at the Mahoning. It was just a constant flow of moving parts, literally, but
Yeah.
it's a lot. It's a lot of detail and a lot of quick thinking and a lot of skill. And I felt like I was definitely watching a magician at work, and was so taken by it. I never in a million years would have ever thought I could do that. I knew 16 millimeter film, that's a completely different animal. That's built for basically anyone to be able to, at least on a consumer level, functionally use it at home.
Right.
But
Right.
this is a whole other thing. But by the time the next season started, I was like, gee, Rob, I'm here with you all the time, and everyone's very generous with having me around and letting me hang out. I should try to do something useful. And it started with, I said, can you teach me some basic stuff to be like an extra set of hands in the projection booth? And it kind of took off from there.
Those early times before even this year, when you guys were just first kind of starting hanging out, we'd see you guys together a lot. You could tell there was something blooming and blossoming. But that's really when we all fell in love with you, because it became a thing where the people that hang out in the booth, it's kind of an exclusive club after a certain point. Like during the opening of a show, the pre-show, yes, we have the open door policy. A lot of people breeze through, but after a certain time, it becomes this clique. And having Rob and you there, that's when really those late night laughs were coming, those deep connections, knowing that we are all very similar personalities, and connecting in that way. That's why I think when you guys did make it official, not only were we also supportive of it, but having you in the booth, it was a natural thing. You were already kind of accepted into that club.
I felt like I was very welcome there all the time.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I talked about it, I guess it was the holiday show, but what I really saw this year is Rob's willingness to teach you, yes, is one thing, and I think that really did propel all this into motion. But his work ethic, once you guys got together, it really did click something in him as well, where he really was able to fully own it, jump into it, and to see you guys work together was such a beautiful thing to watch. And the natural growth into becoming comfortable in the booth, to the point where eventually you felt comfortable enough to run a film and put together film, and step by step, it was just so cool. So why don't you give us some of the kind of timeline highlights of this year, how it kind of all went together? I mean, when somebody's teaching somebody how to run film, where do they start?
Rob made a very specific point to start with properly handling the film and film inspection. And that's how we started. It was all work on the bench. He familiarized me with the projectors because, that's part of understanding the inspection process to some extent as well. It all started on the bench with the proper care and handling of the films. And he made a point and that was probably as far as it was initially going to go. Things really changed when we went up to the Nitrate Picture Show, and I saw these very old prints, these very old, well cared for, volatile prints exhibited to a very warm and receptive audience with great care. And something clicked on me with this whole idea of film preservation. Exhibition's a vital part of that. And I fell in love with the idea of becoming part of that because that experience, it just something solidified, an idea solidified in my head that perhaps a film's life isn't defined without being viewed, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think Rob started you out in the right way because film inspection and handling is not only is it the first thing, but it's almost the most tedious thing. I watched you inspect film, and you'll take you'll crank it once, then you'll look at the sprockets, then you'll crank it again. And it takes time when you're first starting to get through just one reel, let alone a whole show. It takes time just going through one reel. So he started you in the right way. And if you can go through that, tedious as it is, it's still fun, but it's tedious. And if you get through that, then you're going to enjoy the rest of it, working with the projectors and threading them and running them. So he started you out in the right way, because if you can do that, then you can do the rest of it.
Yeah. It's worth mentioning, obviously, Jeff was the trainer throughout this whole process as well. So
Absolutely.
really those steps and the process as far as getting into doing it yourself, he was witness to all that, just like all of us were.
Right.
Yeah. So Rob was very specific about going into the weeds, and instead of just saying, oh, hey, let's thread out this projector and you can run it, it was the complete opposite approach. And I appreciated the tedium of film inspection, and that's what kind of, everything clicked. And I'm like, Rob, I think I'm really falling in love with doing this. Do you think I could actually do this and not just be a helper? Like, do you think I'd be capable of running a film? He said, of course. And then he, I believe, spoke with Jeff and a couple of people and got all the proper permissions and defined what parameters we were working in. Since I was an apprentice of sorts, that's what we called me. I was an apprentice.
Back during the licensing age, when you had to have a license to do what you're doing, yes, you would have been an apprentice. Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. That's what we modeled it after. And it took off after that. I remember during the vinyl market day when Rock and Roll High School was showing, I think. Rob was vending some stuff, I believe. But I was in the booth. He was set up near the booth. I was threading up a reel of film all afternoon, and he would come in and check it and give me notes, which loops were too big, too small, where I may have missed something. And I'd do it again. And I would do it again. And that repetition helped me a lot, because that's when I really felt connected to the machine. Like, I stopped feeling fumbly with it,
Right. You got to know it. You got to master it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a very good idea on his part. Rob proved himself to be a wonderful mentor. Jeff was extremely supportive through the whole process and was always answering my questions. Just both of them very generous with their time, because it's a very busy space, and the workload on Rob and Mike through the season is enormous. So for him to take the additional time to hold my hand through a lot of it was a lot for him to do. Very giving of him. So
yeah,
I'm very grateful.
That's what was so great to see, is this side coming out, and you guys really brought the best out of each other, which, that's what we're all about here, is motivating each other, lifting the bar. And again, you can't not look at the destined factor that as we grew, and there were so many elements coming into play and more shows and this and that you came along at the perfect time. So we feel so incredibly lucky. What was the very first film that you ran on your own?
Well, technically, so completely on my, we'll start with the one I did first, because it's the better story. It was planned, the goal the whole season was for me to run Ghostbusters completely on my own, with Rob being hands off, because it was further in the season. It was in August. The print is owned by the drive-in. So Rob got Jeff's blessing for that, and Jeff seemed to think it was a good idea. So that's what we were working towards, and that gave us plenty of time to. Rob's concern was always sort of throwing me into the fire and risking, if I wasn't prepared, risking me losing my confidence and then being turned off to continuing or something. He was very smart about that. He made sure that I was confident every step of the way, because despite my background with film, I'm out of my element with mechanical things. And I really had to learn to trust myself with that and logically examine, what is this machine and how are the parts moving? And I still want to learn a lot more about it, because I think the more you know the machine, just the better experience it is. And you have to know the machine.
Yeah, that's very true. Yes.
So he made sure to never put me in a position where I didn't feel confident. But it got to the point where early August came around. I said, Rob and I had been running films together, basically where we each took a projector. So I would run projector 1 and he would run projector 2. So I would be responsible for all the thread ups, changeovers, either starting the movie or stopping the movie, whichever projector that landed on. And I got to the point, I said, you know what, Rob, I'm going to have to run this film when it comes up. I've never worked projector to projector. So I asked, maybe dividing the work the other way. Like I would do reels 1, 2, and 3, and he would do 4, 5, and 6. Just so I get the back and forth feel to it. And that led to the night of Rebel, the night Val put together. That meant a lot to her. And she DJ'd for the first time on her own, I believe. Rebel was Billie Jean and Desperately Seeking Susan, which I think was billed as like a night of fierce females.
Yep.
So Rob and I ran Billie Jean together, and the idea came up that day. It was like, do you want to try running Desperately Susan, reels 1, 2, 3? Do you want to just try to do the whole thing? And I said, yes, I really want to do the whole thing, because that's an amazing movie. I'd love to be part of this show like that. And I felt good about it, but the stipulation was Rob shadowed me the entire time. So he double checked all my work. He, was vigilant with the changeovers. I mean, not that he could really step in on them, but, he watched them to make sure they went well. And he didn't end up having to interfere at all. I ended up running the whole film, and he was very hands-off. He just observed, and that was an amazing feeling, especially when you guys sitting in the booth were chatting and figured out that a woman had never run a film at the drive-in before.
No problem.
Yeah.
Probably not. No.
Yeah.
So the timing of that on that night was incredible. And Val was extremely encouraging, because I told her, I said, I think this is the plan. Are you okay with this? Because you worked so hard putting this night together. And, I'm nervous to mess something up for you or anything. She said, I love this, and it's okay if you mess it up, because how else are you going to learn? And that was probably the best thing anyone could have said to me that night.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, she was wonderful and wonderfully encouraging. And but yeah, after that, the first film I ran completely on my own, where Rob was outside, was Ghostbusters. And actually, Jeff also sat outside the booth for that, so I truly was alone in the booth running it.
That progression story, I just love, hearing these origin stories and how things came to be. But the fact that this all happened on that night, celebrating, like you said, fierce females, that's the thing I wanted to touch on. Obviously, you're the only female to run at the Mahoning. You're the only female projectionist at the Mahoning. It is a world that is very kind of male-centric, but I do see some women out there rocking it and rolling it. How do you feel about, being in this position as a female?
I didn't really think of it that way until that night or close to it. But if I'm going to shatter the cement ceiling of the projection booth, that ceiling's probably not cement, is it? But no, I feel that it's probably just by situation and circumstance. I think this probably was a profession that was a boys' club for a long time, but there have been women historically working in projection, and some very well-known women. And I see younger women that are out there that are career projectionists and theater operators. And I think that's wonderful. I mean, I think we all want this medium to last and linger, but even more so, I think we want it to come back in a bigger way than it already is.
Yeah.
That's the dream, right? Because then there's more access. Maybe there's more prints. There's more first run prints coming out on film. All those things would be such positives. So the more people that get involved, the better. And if I can help demonstrate that, this isn't a boys' club at all, and it's visible at the drive-in, all the better.
Absolutely.
But I know a big thing with Rob is he's very, he felt part of being a projectionist, the responsibility is to continue passing that knowledge on to somebody else, because it is such a small community of people doing the work, and longevity, we're going to need more,
Yeah,
absolutely.
It is a shortening field as far as people involved. You're right, because more and more I see projectionists writing online in different Facebook places or Instagram or whatever. Well, I was a projectionist once. Well, I was a projectionist once. Well, I did this once 20. There's so many that used to that can't anymore because there's no outlets for it. Digital projector. All right, you press the play button and you walk away from it. Basically, there's no focus, there's no frame, there's nothing like that. So if you want to run 35 millimeter film, yeah, there's not that many left anymore that can do it.
There really isn't. And I'll say, when I was in college doing the 16 millimeter film work, my friend was managing the AMC that was nearby, which at that point is a huge multiplex. And I told her, I said, is there any way I could get into work there and work in film projection at the theater? And she said, Krista, no. She said, those guys, they're all union. They've all been there forever. They're paid too well. No one's going anywhere. She's like, there's no way you could get in there. And I don't know if that was specific to the way that theater is operating, but the opportunity didn't seem to be very abundant, so it was an idea that I let go of at that point,
Yeah.
And to your credit at the Mahoning, because when I started this process, I started talking to more people. I'd made so many connections and met so many wonderful people and helpful people, both in preservation and career projectionists. But the one thing that I keep coming back to is the opportunity to learn, first of all, as rare as it is. It's a rare opportunity overall, but to learn at the pace that I got to is an extraordinary rare thing, because theaters don't operate film at the pace that the Mahoning does. There's maybe a handful of them in the country that do for the 6 months that you're running film.
Right, that show film maybe every now and then. Yeah.
Right. It's a very regular thing, and the Mahoning, when you have those weekend events, they're all different features, so it's multiple prints that are shown every week. So I was told over and over, you're very lucky. You would not get to learn at the pace you're learning anywhere else. And we did the math. I between the prints I helped Rob run and I believe I ended up doing 7 completely on my own. I worked on 60 films in 2022 at the drive-in.
Come on.
60 is a lot.
Yeah, that's a hell of a lot.
Yeah, way to go.
That is some practice to get under the belt,
Yep.
Yeah, but applaud yourselves for this mission you've made for yourselves and what you're doing, because what an opportunity for anyone, but also, of course, the bigger opportunities for the audience. They get to experience all those films. But yeah, it's pretty mind-blowing when we looked at numbers and compared it to other theaters. And yeah, so I mean, thank you.
Yeah, it's crazy. We just did an interview with somebody who runs an indoor theater, and he said that he had hit about 200 films for his year. We hit 200 films in 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that shows. Yeah,
his is a combination of film and digital, and their projectionist is a female who I hope to have on the who's amazing and has stories, who I hope to have on our show in the relatively near future.
Yeah, worth mentioning, Dorman.
Yeah, definitely.
I look forward to meeting her.
Without a doubt. And that's the great thing about this too, is now that you are officially part of the team, it extends our community. So when you guys are out there at the Nitrate Film Festival, we have representation out there, being able to carry the Mahoning proudly and spread that love of what we're doing. It's a fantastic thing, and nothing warms my heart more than connecting with other theater owners and projectionists and building out this kind of umbrella of the retro world we run.
Oh, definitely. And let me tell you, I don't think that was really on our minds when we went. We were just looking forward to this. It was our first and only vacation we took last year.
Yeah, you gotta plan them. You gotta plan them right.
We were so excited, and Rob was wearing a Mahoning shirt, and multiple people kept coming up and asking about it or saying, "Oh my gosh, I've heard that place. I've heard about that place. Have you been there?" And quite a few people didn't know that that film was run there.
Wow.
And we ended up making friends and people that came out to the Mahoning for the first time from all sorts of distances. Rob made a connection that got a very significant projection parts donation to the drive-in.
Yeah.
Met film preservationists that I'm in touch with and friendly with that are so receptive to questions, and I'm able to learn more about my own collection at home and how to deal with some of the things I have that need some work, but also better practices for what we do with the prints in general. And career projectionists. We met a projectionist in California who comes out to the Mahoning. I think we had seen him already that season, but he comes out like once a year from California to come to a Mahoning event. But he came up and said hello to us at the fest too. So like, people know the theater, and people want to come to the theater. So encouraging this gathering of academics and preservationists and projectionists and just true enthusiasts, it was great. Rob had the staff there very curious about our events and made some connections there. So it's wonderful. I'm starting to love that aspect of it too. Just we were at a screening in Philly, and we met a couple because Rob was wearing a drive-in t-shirt, and they asked, where is it? Because we'd love to go to a drive-in. And then they found out it was film. It was an older couple, and they were wonderful, and they took us out for drinks, and they had drive-in memories from when drive-ins were thriving. And that's what I mean by older, like my age or a little bit higher, but it's really something.
It's a gift, it's we feel so honored to be in the positions that we're all in, but being able to preserve something that means so much to so many people, that happens every single night, where you see somebody and their heart just grows and they fall truly in love with what this experience is all about and what this whole mission is all about. I wanted to bring it up with Jeff because obviously he has all the experience in the projection booths. What was the
Go ahead. What do you want? Tell me. What?
What was the process when you were learning and being trained? Is there kind of a step-by-step process when it comes to training union times?
Yeah, there is. And I think film handling is one of the first things, again, that you learn, because that's kind of the most tedious. But you do learn all aspects of it from one end to the other. And then back then you had to be licensed. You had to, because it is considered heavy machinery. It's dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. There's a lot of voltages involved. And if people have too long a hair, it can get caught in the sprockets. I always tell that story of the one guy that had long hair and he got it caught in the sprockets while it was running, and it ripped the hair right out of his head. I mean, yeah, that's true. And stuff like that would happen. So you had to have a license back then to run 35 millimeter. So what you got is you got 100 questions. You got 50 true and false and 50 completion. And I forget what passing was. I mean, I'd like to say 70 because that's pretty much 70, 72. That's what all tests. So I can't be sure of that anymore. What I am sure of is I got a 98. I only got 2 wrong. I got a 98 and got my license. And yeah, from there on, it's just been fun and games ever since. if you can believe that one. But no, but the days before I was in management, when I was just a projectionist, Oh man, that was fantastic. I know what Krista means. That was fantastic. Number one, usually the manager of the theater didn't really know what you were doing. They just knew that you needed a license, and they figured if you have a license, then you know what they're doing. So they tended not to get involved in what you were doing. So, you pretty much had a free reign. The reason I look at it from a different perspective is because then I went into management. So then I knew management and being a projectionist. So I can see it from their viewpoint. So watching Krista develop from just inspecting movies to running films on her own was just fantastic. I loved watching it. I loved it.
Yeah. We get a front seat, and I do say, after all these years, the magic trick, it just never gets old seeing you guys work that film. And more than that, seeing people fall in love with that process and seeing that process and how open we are with it. But let's peel back some more layers of this onion, shall we? So before you came to the Mahoning, did you have...
Why do you say onion? Is it starting to stink or what?
It's so beautiful, it brings tears to your eyes. Or it stinks so bad it brings tears.
No, it's great. Go ahead, Virgil. It's great.
Before your Mahoning memories, did you have, or were you lucky enough to have experiences as a kid with drive-ins?
No, because my parents would never take me. I grew up near the Newton Drive-In in New Jersey. Yeah. And they used to go there all the time with my sister. My sister's 9 years older than me.
What is this? They were like, nope, not you.
Oh, they talk about it. My dad talks all the time about how he went to the Planet of the Apes all-nighter. And my sister fell asleep in the car. And I'm like, well, that's great, but why didn't you go back?
That would have been a great memory to have.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't around yet, but, we could have gone back. The Newton Drive-In no longer exists. I don't think it has for a while, but I believe I saw online that it was built by... the name Bill Smith, who was involved in building the first drive-in in Camden. So it had some historical significance. And but by the time I was autonomous and making my own decisions for myself, the Newton Drive-In was no longer an option to attend. So I didn't get to go to a drive-in until I was in my 20s. I was on vacation, I believe, in Lake George. And we found a drive-in in that general area. And I said, oh, I have to go. I've been dying to go to one for so long. And it would have been approximately 2006, maybe. So, check me on the date, because the movie was definitely Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which was a perfect movie to see at a drive-in. And then that was totally it until I made it out to the Mahoning.
Well, that's a nice thing. It connects people back with those memories, or those memories they longed for because they missed the boat, or their area drive-in had long been closed. Another big aspect. I know at the Mahoning, when we need to find you, front row, always. Is that a preference with watching the movie? Is that a thing because you work there now and it's closer to the booth? What's the deal there?
Oh, that was always me. Like I said, my first trip out, I think I got lucky because I was early and I got the spot in the front, and then I just realized this is the perfect spot to be. I think a little bit too is my mental stuff. I like having the space open in front of me. I don't know why. That's not something I can really put a finger on, but it is there.
Mark's a front rower. He knows.
I always have been.
Indoor theaters too, not front row in an indoor theater, but the closest you can have to the experience of there being nothing between you and that image on the screen.
Yeah.
Part of it's distractions, and just be able to get lost in it. And the image there is so big that, I'm front row as long as it's available to me.
Yeah, I'm front row, right side if possible, but I've been known to end up on the left out of necessity sometimes.
Everybody has their favorite positions. Yep.
I used to show up hours before the gates would open. I was one of those people. So the few times I was visiting, when Rob was visiting as a fan, our paths never crossed. But I distinctly remember being behind the woman that comes out from, I believe it's Wisconsin. She comes out every year. One of the first time I went to Camp Blood, I was parked behind her. We were up front. In 2022, I met T-Rude because I was parked right behind him, and you can't get in front of him. He's always there first.
Can't forget T-Rude.
I would show up, regularly, minimum an hour early. Like I'd be there an hour early for Tunnel Vision Tuesday if I could swing it, because I had to be up front. And but a big event, oh, I'd show up hours early and just be prepared to read, or I'd watch movies on my iPad, things like that. So
It's that bragging rights too.
How
You
about
always see
that?
people
Yeah.
posting up their pictures. You know, third
I
in
guess,
line,
yeah.
beat that sucker.
There's that too, I guess.
That would be great on one of our T-shirts, guys. We've got to come up with a T-shirt that says something like "I will fight for my space."
For our big events, we'll get a first in line awarded shirt, like a little pendant or something, you know?
Yeah.
They can actually wear it as the badge of honor all weekend.
Yeah.
Front row club.
Yeah. Well, even though you didn't have the all-out childhood experience at the drive-in, we all fell in love with movies at a certain point, however that may be, the cable kids in us, the movie theater. What was that clicking point for you, or movie for you, that really made you fall in love with cinema?
Oh, it's cinema. That's a different question. I mean, my dad was a VCR hound, so he would tape everything, and we had HBO. So my initial movie collection was built from taping movies on. Can I say that?
Hell yes.
Yeah,
Is
you
that
can say
okay to
that.
do?
Hell
That's
yes.
why they
Yeah.
made blank tapes.
That's right.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could publicly admit that anymore with Warner Brothers, but and I had two really fantastic video rental stores in my small town. We had two of them. One was called Photography Unlimited. It was a camera shop that also ran a very substantial rental shop, and I don't remember the name of the other, but I loved going. I knew I loved going and looking at the VHS covers and finding something to watch. I mean, what a time when you based your decision on box art, right? There wasn't all this noise from the internet
Yeah.
guiding you on what you should and shouldn't watch.
True discovery, tangible discovery. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think I never really thought of it as more than like I thought it was normal for everyone to connect with film like that or watch movies in that way. It was just something I always wanted to do. And then I had a high school English teacher that showed us a film, I think once a month, and we would have conversations about the film. I know he showed us 1,000 Clowns, which is a movie I still am deeply in love with. I love that movie. But it was when he showed us Dr. Strangelove. And all the analysis he provided and drew out of us, high schoolers, it dawned on me, and it took that long for me to realize that film was just as critical a medium as literature and music.
Yeah.
Two things I was I was a musician through my whole school career and very into reading and writing. I was always a passive movie watcher until that class happened. And I just saw movies in a whole other way. So you could say that's how I fell in love with cinema, because I just began to engage mentally and emotionally in a very different way from that point on. So I have him to thank for that.
Yeah, we had what was it called? Literary vision of film in college.
Ooh,
and it was the same thing. We would just break down a movie like it were a book, and it just, for a writer, for somebody who was so obsessive about analyzing film, it brought the community aspect to it because everybody was so into it. It was such an eye-opener to realize that and have that appreciation for movies and storytelling in that medium.
Absolutely.
Do you have a favorite film? I know that's like the ultimate hardest question ever. What people always want to ask that in, interviews and whenever press is out and this and that. It's impossible. It's impossible. It's like, what era of me do you want to answer?
Do I have 7 minutes again?
You have
it could be
8 minutes
films.
and 45 seconds.
It could be films. It could be a genre that you gravitate toward.
If I had to answer one singular film, I would say this, and I mean it with no pretension. It would be Wings of Desire. Cool. Just because it encapsulates so many different things that I really love about the medium. But There's so many more. I've seen Apollo 13 at least 50 times because for some reason that movie is so
we know
comforting to
your
me.
love of Apollo 13.
I'm a big advocate for that one. It's on my list.
Yep.
I'm a big fan of horror films, giallo films. I really love those. I eat those up like candy.
Yeah, great knowledge of the giallo deep cuts. Which I love.
Right. I love the music from them as well. Lifetime melodramas. I am big into those. From the 80s and 90s, that was a thing, and excellent viewing opportunities there.
Like made for TV Lifetime movies?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Virgil, it's a treasure trove of entertainment.
It's like go down that rabbit hole. You know, there's certain movies that stand out. I just don't know if they were like Lifetime movies, but they had like the Full House cast all the time. They had Fred Savage popped up in this one I'll never forget. He's a wrestler that like dates Jay Tanner. You know that one?
I would tell you I would tell you the name of it, but it has like 8 names, so I'm gonna get it wrong.
Multiple names. I love
all these movies have multiple names. And believe me, I've gone digging for copies of a lot of them so that I have them on the ready here at my home.
That stuff happens to me all the time where I'll remember something like a scene and then I'll be like, that couldn't have happened. That's not a movie. And it turns out to be a TV movie that I randomly saw. You know?
Oh, yeah. Troubled teen movies, missing babies. That's all good stuff from Lifetime.
Gotta love that whole genre.
I
What's
thought you were saying
genre? Missing babies.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were saying in general. What are my favorite? I love giallo and I love missing baby movies.
I love it. Let that be how I am defined by people that have yet to know me.
Judge at will.
Yeah, I love experimental films. I'm a Ridley Scott apologist. I love Hal Hartley. Big fan of Bill Morrison's work. That was one thing Rob and I bonded over because it's rare that I meet someone in the, out of context of experimental art films that is familiar with his work. And there's so many.
That's what I love. It's a constant exploration. And, with you guys, your relationship, you guys get to share a lot of that together. And there's crossover. That's the one thing that I'm so jealous of when I watch Mark and Val or you and Rob. Mm. The art, sometimes mine and Nancy's tastes, they differ in big ways, especially when it comes to movies. So it's like, those moments that we have where it's like, all right, who's picking the movie? Who's the one going to be upset tonight? It's more of a middle ground we're trying to constantly meet. I'll split this one into 2. So Mahoning memories, favorite Mahoning memories. I guess we'll do this as favorite as a quote unquote fan and one from in the booth.
As a fan, I would say it was The Wild World of David Lynch, the first one. It was 2021, still semi-lockdown times, limited opportunities to do certain things. And I used to go to concerts all the time. I mean, it would be not uncommon for me to see a show in Philly, in New York, and in Asbury Park all in the same week, or go to Philly a couple times a week for shows. I just love live music. I love that energy. And when COVID happened, there were no concerts. There was no live music. And right. I remember when you brought F.U. Tammy out to perform at that event, they were doing their sound check. And the sound check brought tears to my eyes. I stood there and I was watching them and I started crying because it had been so long. I had a number for it. It was something like 400 some odd days since I had experienced a concert. And I felt so grateful to you and to that place for giving that opportunity to us. I mean, plus the movies, right? But
that was incredibly special.
It was
tears
a very
rolling.
Yeah. And it's just the sound check. And that, they are wonderful people. I'm still in touch with them. And but that whole weekend, it was the first time I had multiple friends come out that I got to hang out with at the drive-in, because I know so many people that are rabid David Lynch and Twin Peaks fans. Rebecca Del Rio being a surprise guest was unreal.
Yes. Who now you have multiple adventures with.
Yes. She is also a friend now.
Yeah, that's its own podcast.
Wonderful, wonderful woman. And yeah, so that weekend, I think that was when I truly, truly felt like the place became a part of my heart, because it gave me something I so needed at that point in life, you know? I think a lot of people did. I'm not the only one that felt that way that day.
Oh, God, yeah.
The booth memory.
Yeah, even harder, right?
There's so many.
I know.
I mean, there's the moments that were... There was running the dark half where we couldn't see the film because of all the fog, and I learned a lot about changeovers that night.
Yeah.
I learned a lot about a lot of things that night, but that was not my only mistake. But I missed every changeover. Like, you just couldn't see them. Rob and I were both watching all of them, and we both could not see the same ones. So it wasn't me,
You're
but
trying to pick it out of the sky.
No.
Yeah.
When it's that foggy, you can't see the cue marks. No.
yeah, but he was still pretty good at executing changeovers that he couldn't see, and that's when I learned about timing, and that's when he taught me like the mechanics of the number of frames between the motor cue and the changeover cue, and all of that, and that experience really made me learn that.
Right. It was the caveat right into it.
You can do it by feel, sort of. It helps if you can see the first cue, because then you know when the second one is going to come up. But yeah, it's not as exact, but you can do it.
Oh, I can get into all the crazy methods that night inspired in my process from that point forward. But one thing I was doing, because it's approximately 7 seconds between motor cue and changeover cue usually. So I was sitting there,
7 or 8. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was sitting there timing myself, counting out 7. You know, I would spend time doing that just to make sure I had a real feel for what 7 seconds really felt like.
Wow, I love that.
But no, a better memory, I think, was probably the night that I ran Desperately Seeking Susan, because I felt so supported by Rob and Jeff in the booth when it was happening. And I felt so supported by Val and by you, Virgil, and Mark, because Mark was there too, and he was all over that idea about the historical aspect of it, and no pressure, right? And that's why, thank you, Rob. He made the announcement after the film, and he did that very specifically to not set me up to feel nervous about it. But
that was one of my favorite memories of the year, was when you got that big applause at the end of the show to let everybody know, you know.
That was really touching to me, and there were regulars and even people who were just there that came in and said something, which that was very unexpected. But the moment I remember was when the credits were rolling, and I looked at Rob, and he kind of was just smiling, because, you know, we were pretty much in the clear.
Yeah.
And Val came in, and she just looked really happy that she just got to watch this movie and that her night went really well. And Into the Groove is playing on the closing credits, and I just had this feeling that just, I can't describe, but I feel it every time I hear that song now. So
good.
That was a good moment. I felt just really happy, and I felt like I was doing something I should be doing, I guess.
Absolutely. Where you were meant to be. Where you were meant to be.
Where you're meant to be.
And the people around me, you know. That was
being
the big
able
part
to
of
lift
it.
you up. That's so important, you know, is to have that encouragement, especially with what we do. It's so incredibly stressful to have the team behind you and rah-rahing for you and all for one. It's a big part of what we do, you know. Well, I don't want to take up all the time. I want to give Jeff and Mark the chance to ask some questions. Mark, you got anything for the wonderful Krista?
What I would like to know is thus. You have 17 minutes. Well, no, I have 17 questions. First of all, as a fellow collector of celluloid, do you have a favorite or most prized possession in your 16 millimeter collection?
Or now 35 collection.
Well,
we can't talk about that just yet.
For certain reasons, I won't. But I found 3 episodes of Mr. Ed on 16.
That's great.
I did it. I found them on eBay.
It was you.
And
way to go, Krista.
Side story. You know what's funny? When we had our friend, fellow film collector Jeff C. on the podcast, we talked about were there any prints that got away, and he was super mad that he missed out on winning on eBay a print of The Exorcist. And not long after that, we had a guy come out to the theater, and he had listened to the podcast, and Jeff was there, and he was like, "Is Jeff around? I want to apologize. I'm the guy who won that Exorcist print."
Oh gosh, that's so funny.
We're all in the same circle.
So did the Mr. Ed prints come in the original plastic shipping cans? Because I've got a Brady Bunch print that comes in an original. It was like Viacom or Paramount. It's like the original studio can in the reel, which I thought was really cool.
They did not. In fact, when I bought them, it was just a picture of a reel in a metal can and a Post-it note that said Mr. Ed and an episode name. So that was a real leap of faith.
Yeah.
But I was so desperate to get my hands on Mr. Ed on film.
What a world.
I have to go for it. Like, I said I have to go for it. It wasn't, there really wasn't a bidding war or anything. No, I don't understand why there wouldn't be. But,
no, but those are the kind of things to collect, because Mr. Ed, yeah, if I found episodes of that on 16 millimeter, I would have bid on those. I mean, it's a collectible series. Yeah. There's no doubt about it. And just because it doesn't come on an original reel, that's okay too, because I was fortunate. I have a 16 millimeter print of one of the episodes of Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. And on the reel, it says ABC Television Network. Nice. And so I kept that on that reel because I know it was an original.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but they don't have to come on the original reel to be worthwhile.
And the thing about it, the 16 millimeter print of a TV episode, those weren't manufactured for the home market. So you got something that a TV station used to run that show.
Oh, they have built-in commercials. It's great.
Oh, man, that's amazing.
Awesome.
That's amazing.
They're not in the best of shape, but very watchable. Rob and I watched one right before the holidays, and
I just imagine you guys falling in love over Mr. Ed episodes. Rob's
did.
Up, she went this far. She's the one.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. Rob and I watch Mr. Ed before we go to bed all the time.
I love it.
Oh, that's cool.
Love it.
When I was, a kid, late period of kiddom, that was part of the Nick at Night, that original black and white Nick at Night lineup. So those shows that were decades before my time are super cozy at night for me.
Why do you think I fell in love with it? Because that was where I got to see it. Do you remember when Nick at Night ended? It was either when Nick at Night was ending its run of old programming like that, or when it was specifically ending its run of Mr. Ed. They had a promo that you could call in and order a Mr. Ed feed bag. It was like a little, like a bag you could buy.
I don't remember that. Nick at Night was so great. It was so really geared at old retro TV fans, and it had a great sense of humor, and their promos had that kind of faux retro feel to them.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
It was like you call the 800 number and order it, and shipping and handling and all that. Funny enough, when I was really big into music in high school, and I was in a bunch of, orchestras that were regional and whatnot. I met a girl. She was walking around with a Mr. Ed bag. I was so jealous. She was the coolest person. I got to talk to her, and I was like, I can't believe you have that. And we were friends.
Get up the 800 number.
We were friends for the time of that orchestra's run, but
that rules.
How many orchestras in the history of the world post 1960s do you think had more than one Mr. Ed superfan?
It was destiny.
That might have been the only one. One person, odds are good, but two.
Well, the Sussex County area, the Sussex County all whatever band of circa 1996 had 2 of them.
Oh, Wilbur.
Do you have any features on 16?
Oh yeah, most of mine are pretty faded because I'm not a big spender. But I have Bell Book and Candle, a movie I love dearly. I bought a copy of The Nightcomers off of Carl,
It's
who
a good movie.
has an intensely amazing collection of film. I have International Velvet, and speaking of horses, it was a movie I loved growing up and found a TV print of that.
I remember when that was on heavy rotation.
Yeah. What else do I have feature? I have the little girl lives down the lane. Yeah, there's some features kicking around here. Slowly but surely building those up as opportunity comes.
And speaking of giallo, top 2 or 3 giallos for you, the ones you most revisit if you have the time to revisit them.
I love Strawberry.
It's my favorite.
Strawberry Jello.
Jello. Oh, I thought you said Jello.
That's hard. Your Vice is a locked room, and only I have the key. The Fifth Chord, Footprints on the Moon, Double Face, Hatchet for the Honeymoon's really good, if that counts.
It's such a rich genre. There were so many of those made. I watch them as often and voraciously as I can, and I don't think I've seen even close to, a quarter of the ones that were made.
Oh yeah, I was doing a group online watch somewhere in 2020, and the one I chose for that night it's either called Puzzle or Body Puzzle. Very slow burn leading up to it, and kind of an absurd story as they all are, but oh my gosh, the payoff is so excellent. So you never know what you find with those movies, and I try to get my hands on all of them and any of them, and that's my favorite thing, is to kick back with one of those.
I feel about giallo films and spaghetti westerns, or as I've come to find out they call them in Italy, westerns, that I don't think I've ever seen one I didn't like. Like, some are better than others, but the genre conventions and the isms that they all have are just a place I like to be.
Yes.
So I will watch any and every one of any of those I can get my hands on.
Absolutely. I'm like that with giallo. I have not seen many westerns, period. It was never a genre that attracted me. But Rob's trying to change that.
Standard westerns as a kid, they just looked dull to me because I couldn't relate to them in any way. And it wasn't until I started watching the Leone westerns and got into the Italian westerns, and they're just so stylish and so weird, and the music is so good, that opened the door to let me start looking at the American westerns and things like that. So good luck with that. I know some people are just flat out no. It's got a horse.
No, I really do. I really do look forward to exploring more of the Italian ones. Westerns are a little stressful for me because I also grew up working with horses and worked with a horse rescue for a long time as an adult, and it's stressful for me to watch how those animals were utilized in those movies.
Some of the action sequences, especially if a battalion is galloping down a hillside, can be you can worry about that.
But I try to put that aside for the sake of watching a movie, but sometimes it's not so easy. That scene early on in Napoleon, geez, I don't know if you saw that, but that was intense. Not that that's a Western. I'm just saying that was a recent example of horse violence.
Yeah. The use of horses in film.
Like films about missing babies and films which feature horse violence.
No, we don't.
They're my go-tos.
We don't want
psychological profile that's kept on file.
That's
we don't want horse violence.
I'm sorry.
Not that. No.
Anti-horse violence.
That was great. How about you, Jeff? Anything for Krista?
I have a trivia question for Krista.
Oh.
Okay, being such a fan, where is Mr. Ed buried?
Oh, geez.
I don't know the answer to that.
I don't either. I was hoping you did.
Set it up on a tee, baby.
I know that.
We're all going to be looking that up now. We're all going to be looking that up.
Everybody's Googling it at home.
Okay.
I'm so bad with names. Was his name Al Young, Wilbur?
Alan Young.
Alan Young, yeah. I know he and Ed had a relationship post shooting the show, he would visit Ed and ride him, and they had a friendship. And I know Ed was well cared for, and that wasn't his real name, but his real name escapes me right now. But yeah, that's all I do know.
They took good care of him after the show. But no, I think the questions you guys asked were excellent. You covered most of the stuff I wanted to ask her. So that's about it after horsing around with Ed there for a little bit.
Nice. Very good.
The nice thing is, Krista, is I'm sure you're going to have more films to run this coming year. So I hope you're looking forward to it.
I'm really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to becoming a better projectionist and getting more hands-on experience.
Yeah, you will. You're doing fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, yep.
We feel so lucky to have you as part of the team. We feel so lucky to have you as part of our family. And we're really looking forward to our adventures in 2024 and beyond. Before we let you go, any thoughts on the new season? It's our Diamond anniversary, 10 years retro.
I'm just really looking forward to it. I may or may not have heard some rumors of what's coming up, and I am very, very, very excited about everything I've heard so far. And
good.
And yeah, I look forward to seeing everyone again on a regular basis because I miss everybody.
Yeah, we miss you too.
Yes, you too. We'll be back in the saddle before you know it. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, we love you so much. Thank you for all that you have given the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. Thank you for loving and supporting Robert, which has elevated him as well to a whole other level. And thank you for just being awesome for us.
Well, of course, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for fostering a passion of Rob's in the first place so that I had the opportunity to meet him. But thank you for opening the door from this year and allowing me to be in the space and learn so much, and for the support and for also teaching me. I feel very lucky and very, very blessed that I had the opportunity that I did. And I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Well, you're very welcome. You're very welcome.
We are absolutely honored. And cheers to a new year. We're looking forward to seeing everybody on the lot in 2024. But be sure to stay tuned to the socials for new event announcements coming very soon. As always, the Patreon goes nowhere in the off season. So if you guys want to support the Mahoning, the best way to do so is to jump over and subscribe to our Patreon, which gives you all sorts of perks throughout the whole entire month. I think that'll do it for us. So on that note, Jeff, take it away, my friend.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for coming out tonight to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. We hope you'll come back and see us again real soon. The exit is on the right-hand side of the screen at the front of the field, and most importantly, have a very safe trip home. Good night, and God bless you.